Mai haere mai e te whānau. Welcome to the Flow to the Next podcast. My name's Holly. I'm on Gadigal land in Sydney, as is Danny, and we're back on the pod. Again, after a short hiatus, we have Alex in Te Whanganui Atara, Wellington. One game to chat today, men versus Sydney. Josh Aloiame was back in goal, which I think was maybe a little bit surprising for some of us, but apparently the first person Greeny called when he took on the interim job was not actually Roos, it was Josh, to reassure him. The other talking point, Eze, he had gotten himself suspended due to 5 yellow cards, some of which were pretty stupid yellow cards, but anyway, no Eze. I think we played so much better than we did in the derby. That's very, very clear. So much better. But it wasn't enough. We lost 1-0 to a goal in the 49th by Alexander Popovic. Caruccio just plays this cutback and somehow, despite all of the people in the box, Popovic really just has to tap it in. I think we did have some good attacks, but as Rufus said, that the not winning was down to us, lacked the cutting edge in the final third. Greeny said post-match that there were positive signs. I think the biggest talking point, but again, a penalty that people just seems to be allowed to kick us, push us, whatever. A penalty has been awarded in the first minute. The ref seemed to have a decent enough view of it, and then he was called over, 31st minute, so he was called over, and it took until the third to decide with VAR that it was no foul. Alex, let us know what you think of the game.
It was pretty horrible. It was a better crowd than other games this match. Gave out a heap of free tickets, apparently. There was actually quite high demand for the free tickets. They started with 500, I believe, and then they got snaffled up pretty quickly, which, is surprising. But I think tactically we kind of had a bit of improvement compared to other matches. Definitely compared to the derby, that was horrible. Even worse, even more horrible. I thought the first half we controlled the game pretty well. Probably had the better chances in the first half as well, which just makes it more annoying that we didn't get anything out of the game. But both halves, our defensive worries continued. Same problem. Not enough pressure on the ball or effort, especially in the box, and just heaps of mistakes from, our most experienced players who you'd expect to not be making those mistakes and to, be leading the line. And, being good in the box, marking players, just the basic stuff, There's one time in the first half where Bill Twillam got completely sent by a Sydney attacker in the box. He squares up to the Sydney attacker thinking he's going to cut inside, sets his whole body for it, and then the attacker just walks past him, just kind of strolls past. No tricks, no step overs. Which is something you'd expect better from an all-whites defender. He might be going to the club. Baisley seems to rate him at right back. I thought we sure missed Eze a lot as well, not only his finishing, but also his movement in the final third. I love Corbs, and he's great when he's on the pitch, every now and then. I think he's great as a sub, especially, but today, it's just obvious he's not really a striker. When he's the one leading the line, I think we can do a lot better. Not only with finishing, but kind of his movement. I'm not really sure where his best position is. He's kind of one of those players that you'd love to get onto the pitch, but then you're like, oh, well, actually, where do I play him? And then with the penalty decision, I think that's absolutely a penalty. It's ridiculous it wasn't called as a penalty. I do that all the time. I shove players over like that. It's always get called as a foul. He doesn't come in just with his body, but also with his arms. I have no idea how VAR's ruled that out. Anyone else on the pitch is obviously a foul. I don't really get it.
I think the reaction to this match, how people saw it, it's so dependent. It's quite interesting. It's so dependent on the context. If this match was DD before the derby, I think we're really critical of this performance. It was very defensive. We didn't really attack. We didn't create very much. We created a few chances, but not many, and we certainly didn't take them. We sat back. We had the same defensive errors at the back there, with people just not picking up men in the box. And we lose to a team when we need to want it and go bottom of the table. And I think if this had happened, as say BD, we'd be slagging off. There'd be calls for Chiefy to go and Domi to resign and Gill probably to jump off a bridge. There would be a lot of stuff. But because it's happened AD after the derby, lot of people are saying, well, it's not too bad, it's solid, it's consistent, we can something to build on, we only got beat 1-0. And it's like, our expectations have changed just overnight because of that huge defeat against Auckland. And I understand that. But realistically, at the performance, I get why Greeny would be happy with it, because he's brought the same players in and they've played a game of football without letting in 5 goals. And that's going to be good for their confidence. And, again, we weren't totally beaten by Sydney, because in this league, there's not many teams that are a lot better than others. However, most teams are consistently better than us, which is why we're bottom of the table. But for the players themselves, they played a reasonable match. They were organised. We defended pretty deeply compared to usual, but it was the same formation as we've been playing most of the season. Some players played better than usual. Retre and Najarine, I thought, played really well in the first half, and I don't think I'd ever say that about Retre, but they did, not so well in the second half. But missing Eze meant that, our main attacking chance wasn't there, so we weren't going to score, many goals without him. And so we, slipped to a 1-0 loss, which is disappointing. But AD were going, well, you know what, maybe we can build on it next week. Penalty, I think I must be the only one who I didn't think it was a penalty. I really don't think it was a penalty at all. I thought Nagasawa, they were both going forward to the ball. Nagasawa stopped and actually backed in very quickly, very slightly, into Grant. I don't think Grant meant to push him. I don't think Grant had anywhere to go. Nagasawa went back in. But yeah, he had his arms up there because Nagasawa was pushing into him. And then as he bumped into him, he pushed away with the right arm. But I think that was normal football contact. I know we hate that word, but I don't think it was a penalty. I genuinely don't, but I appreciate I'm in a minority. It's just being the referee on that.
Part of it was that, as far as I understand, it's supposed to be clear and obvious error for VAR, and it just, I think for a lot of people, it's like, even if it would have been soft. Don't get me wrong, like Danny, I would agree that it would have been soft, but the fact that it had just gone and turned it over, I don't know. Look, I think we did have some decent shots. We had 12 shots, 3 on target to their 10, 3 on target. It wasn't too bad. It just, there were some really good saves for both goalkeepers. And I think there were really quite a few that Devonish Mares, Sevenish Bears stopped that realistically, if we score those, the game is, it's a cliche. If that goal goes in, the game is different. But I don't know, where do we go from here? I'll mention our next, I know there's more to say, but I will mention our next game. It is Adelaide away. That is this Friday, March the 6th. That is 9:35 p.m. New Zealand time. Adelaide are a pretty big ask. Continue thoughts on this game, but also looking forward to Friday.
I think we play the same again. I think Greeny will put out pretty much the same team. I think he'll play the same formation. It'll be try and be solid. For him, I think his job really is to stabilize the team, get some confidence back, and maybe avoid that huge roller coaster that we had all season where we're winning one week and losing the next and winning one week and losing the next, which has been actually quite entertaining in some matches and terrible in other matches. I think Greeny would be very, very happy with lots of 0-0s away from home and 1-0s at home, 1-0 victories at home. If he did that for the rest of the season, I think he'd be thinking, yeah, the job's mine. That's it. And I can't blame him for doing that. He could, I think some people were expecting him being the youth team manager to come in and just pick a load of youth team players and go gung-ho and recreate that 45 minutes against Wrexham, which everyone seems to think was the high point of our season. But realistically, that's not how it works. He wanted to get those senior players back on the pitch, playing with a bit of confidence. And he succeeded in doing that. I think it was the right call. It was a gutsy call to pick Josh. I didn't think we'd see him in a Phoenix shirt again, and he did all right. And he didn't. We played out from the back quite a lot, even more so we normally have, and he seemed to manage that. So, that was good. And I hope, we see more of Josh, and I hope he plays well for the rest of the season because, it could easily have been the end of his Phoenix career anyway, that huge, horrendous mistake. I mean, if you're the main focus of a David Squires cartoon, and not for a good reason, it's hard to come back from that, but hopefully he's done all right. So, whether we'll be able to compete for the rest of the season, I'm not sure. There's not a lot between the teams. Sydney, we could easily have won that. You're right. Sydney weren't particularly good and they're third in the league. I think apart from Auckland and Newcastle, all the other teams are much of a muchness, but we're just slightly below the rest of them. Whereas that means we win the odd game over, the 20 odd games of a season, it comes out that we're down there at the bottom. And I don't think that's, an anomaly. Doesn't mean that we can't get a couple of results going forward for the rest of the season. Let's hope that will be the case. I think Greeny would be really happy with a normal draw against Adelaide.
Yeah, I'd be happy with anything against Adelaide away. I can't remember in all of my time supporting the Phoenix us ever winning at Cooper Stadium. It's horrible to go there. As an away player, I assume the atmosphere is always incredible. Props to the Adelaide supporters. But I actually do think there's some things we can build from the performance. Greeny, how many days would he have in training with the team? Like 3 or something? That's not long enough to build a tactical identity. I mean, that takes often seasons, but even to just kind of get the ball rolling with the start of something tactical, takes weeks. And we don't really have that much time. But I think if we can, get another week added on and, Greeny can start getting the players riled up. I think we kind of saw that in the first half. There was a bit more intensity, a bit more pressure on the ball, and the players seem to be trying a bit harder. I guess having Chiefy out of there gives them something to play for now. I think the biggest, the shame that I saw was that it was basically the same team that Chiefy had played. Chiefy's put out that lineup so many times, bar Eze. I would like to see Greeny kind of switch it up a wee bit, get Miliosnic starting. I think if he starts, that could add something different to the team. Luke Brooks-Smith. And if the season's gone, once we lose a few more games and Greeny goes, oh yeah, we're probably not going to make the top 6, I would be keen to not see Josh starting. He's probably not going to be here next season. Albie, he's a young keeper, or even Amon, even though he's not contracted, which we should definitely get him contracted. By the way, he's someone we definitely need to lock down. But I would like to see Albie getting some minutes. Just looking ahead to the future. I'm not a massive supporter of Greeny being the permanent head coach. If he gets the wins, and proves me wrong, all power to him. I hope he gets the job, but I think he's kind of the character that you want in your football club. And, head coaches are really permanent. It's a temporary job. And if he started head coach, I don't really see him being able to drop back down to the reserves. He's probably going to move on to other things if he does really good or if he does really bad. So I'd be keen to see the club look elsewhere. It is very early on though, so we'll see how it happens.
It would be nice to see if Greeny can bring that sort of knowledge of the youth scene through and play some more exciting players. I have to say, mate, when I saw the lineup and I saw that Rattray was there and Majerine, for very experienced Australian players who are probably on a decent wage, I don't think they've really shown enough over the season, particularly Rattray. I just don't think he's just been good enough for the senior kind of player he is. But they played actually really well, as I said before, and I think playing Rattray further back was definitely good. That meant Nagasawa went up, and I thought he played the number 10 role really well in the kind of way that I thought Najarine should have been playing all season. But then Najarine went and did exactly the same thing and played really well in the first half and was really involved and got stuck in and created a couple of chances. I thought, oh, wow, okay, where's this been, basically? But Nagasawa I thought was excellent. I thought he was really good. I think he's good wherever he plays this season. It took a while to get into the league, but this season he's been probably one of our most consistent and most important players because he's got that pops up everywhere and he's got a little bit of skill to create something sort of out of nothing. But yeah, when you saw Luke Brooks-Smith come on and you could see how involved he gets and the sort of stuff he creates, you'd like to see him get a bit more time as well. And I have to say defensively, Bill Tuiloma, who, no doubt is a great player, he just hasn't really again transformed that defence the way we were hoping. We think, okay, Tuiloma, he's going to be a rock. He's going to solidify the defence, and he really hasn't. And it makes me wonder that there was a comment that Gilly made after the Derby defeat when he talked about players with one eye on the World Cup and they need to focus on playing now. And I'm just wondering if that was directed towards him because there's just just seems to be switching off. I mean, the goal there, Sheridan slipped. Not much you can do about that. So the ball comes across, but Popovich was completely unmarked on the line there. And it's like, who's paying attention to it? No one was even close enough to try and get there. So really disappointing that was the way we conceded. And so, but I'm not sure we got many of choices. I thought Lucas Kelly-Hill looked really good when he came on. But he does tend to do that. Looks quite good in patches. I'm not sure he's a starter. But yes, it would be nice to see some of those younger players come on and get a bit of a chance and show what we can do. Greeny knows him well. Obviously, he's there within the 20s with the All Whites as well. So he's got a lot of knowledge there. He knows what they can do. But yeah, I think for the moment, he'll be going with the senior players and he'll be, trying to shore things up until the memory of the derby has drifted away a little bit more from people's minds.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Bill Trelawney should have one eye on the World Cup. I don't think he should have any eyes on the World Cup, because if I'm Darren Baisley, I'm not picking him. It's that simple. I think there are better right back options, assuming Tim Payne is fit, which hopefully he will be. He's by far the best New Zealand right back. Not that there's that many, but for second choice, I'd go Callan Elliott over Bill Trelawney. Bill Trelawney's just been horrible. Well, maybe not horrible, but he hasn't really shown what he's needed to show. Sure, he's got the experience, but you go in recent form for a World Cup, and Callan Elliott's got years ahead of him. He's in a good Auckland team, and yeah, I'd choose him over Bill Trelawney any day. Unfortunately,
I agree. I look at it. He does do some really good things, and there's definitely stuff that he can pick a good pass when he's focusing. He has got a long throw, but I think that when he came in, fans' expectation was high. He's come from the MLS, which is not the best league in the world, but he's still been a stalwart at the team there. And with that All Whites experience, with his age, I think he came in and everyone like, this is what we need. And then the mistake he made, I can't remember who said, Danny, it might have been you who said this, that if an academy player had made that kind of mistake, the worst one that he made, you would be saying they're not ready for the first team, they've not got the focus and the constant. The one where he just completely miscontrols the ball, I can't remember the game. It was really bad. So he's been a disappointment, and you're right. There's no point having one eye on the World Cup if your performance is domestically not good enough, because you're just not going to be picked. You're not going to be going. So I think for him, it's really an expectation was reasonably higher, and he's not lived up to that. Talking about the squad though, so Luciano, one of our little corner of yellow friends, said realistically, so without Eze, we struggle. And then when I thought about it, he said, we seem to have only actually signed one proper striker, and that was Eze. And when he's not playing, we struggle to score goals. And I look through the squad list, and Najarine, not really a proper striker, even though he did play really well on Sunday. LBS, a little bit more of a wide player. Luke Supik, who knows where he's at? He's very young. And I'm just Sarpreet Singh is out, but further back. Carlo is wide. Probably Mille, but he hasn't been playing. So Miljersnich is probably the only other realistically proper striker, and he is not getting full games for some reason. I kind of imagine that if he was capable of playing a full game, he would have started. Surely he would have started on the weekend, but he did not. Have we made a hash of this in terms of our recruitment?
I mean, I think the way that Chief was looking at play, we've signed Eze, who's a old school number 9 up front, lump the ball up to him and he'll hold it up or he'll take it himself and whatever. But I don't think that's necessarily the way the Chief particularly wanted to play. He's playing with wide players, wing backs. He's playing with 2 number 10s who can go either side of it. So we don't actually need more than one striker, centre forward striker. And so we've got Eze, we've got a backup in Miljersnich, and then we've got a third backup in Luke Supik, who can all play that sort of central role. But it's not. I don't think they were supposed to score all the goals. And realistically, we've scored a lot of goals this season. Up until recently, we were one of the top scorers. And it's been spread around. Yes, Eze's been magnificent, but he's been spread around a bit. Almiento's chipped in with quite a few, and a few other players have as well. So based on the formation we were trying to play, I think we had the right number of strikers. What we've ended up doing a little bit is relying on Eze so much because he's been so good that we've been, okay, well, you know what? We can just lump it long to him and he'd make something of it. So when he's out, we don't have anyone else who can play that well. Because to be honest, there's very few players in the league who are as good at Eze as playing that lone striker role, where he just makes something out of nothing and fights off 2 or 3 players. As you said, Alex, Corbin Piper can't do that. That's not his role. I think he's better creating chaos with someone else to pick up when he creates chaos and the loose ball, or be the one that picks up on the loose ball from someone else. I don't think he's not good at that role by himself. Doesn't mean he can't play up there in the front two, but he's not a lone striker like Eze is. But yeah, I don't think we ever planned to play particularly with a lone striker. I think it was supposed to be someone up there, but lots of people overlapping and going down the wings and then cutting back and that sort of thing. So in that respect, I think we probably got the right number of strikers. But in the type of football that we've ended up playing, no, we only have Eze. But I think that's just really because Eze's been so good that we've been almost playing to his strengths too much.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head there, Danny. I agree with you. Just good thing is that Eze's been so consistent, not unlike other players being injured. He's pretty much been available to play every single minute, apart from the game where he's been suspended, He's a good player. He's been probably the best signing for us this season. Just a shame he won't be here next season.
I think all our expectations are still pretty low, which is possibly a good thing. It means people get off their backs a little bit. No one's going to be calling him out too much. Game on Friday, obviously missing Rufa. It will be interesting to see Nagasawa playing alongside Rattray if that's what happens, and we'll see who plays at number 10 there. It could be Lou Brooks-Smith playing at number 10, and that would be interesting. I'm hoping for a few goals. I'm actually going to the game, so I'll be at Cooper Stadium, which is always a good stadium to go and watch football in. But I think I've only ever seen the Phoenix win there once, so I haven't got my hopes up too much.
As I say, Adelaide, the city of Adelaide, terrible place. We will move on. So we will come back and talk about the Ferns series. They're playing in the Pacific Islands at the moment. I will mention first game, 8-0 win over Samoa. Manoia Elliott with 2 goals and Pia Vlock on debut. We're currently playing the Solomon Islands. It is currently 5-0. One of the goals is by Jale. We were going to have a bit of a chat, a talking point with what's happened recently about when players get injured, seriously injured, and they need surgery and serious recovery time, and the club offers them the standard surgery and recovery time, and we've got great facilities at NZCIS. But apparently that's maybe not good enough for all players, and all of a sudden it was going around social media that Samba had put out a give a little page and a fundraiser to raise money to go to Doha, which is being bombed at the moment, by the way, but to go to Doha to a particular clinic. Now, I feel like the way it was talked about in some ways kind of implied that either the to outsiders potentially implied that the club wasn't willing to pay for surgery and proper treatment, or that people was suggesting that the New Zealand healthcare system is terrible. The club did offer obviously what they had booked her in for surgery 3 weeks after she injured it. There's been massive delays because of this, but it sounded like the Nepalese Football Association paid for it last time she tore it, and she wants to go back to that very, very expensive clinic, and the Knicks will contribute what they get out of their insurance but cannot afford that. And the Nepalese Football Association decided that they don't have the money. And we're talking about I think she raised $120,000 or something like that. I think the aim was something like $80,000 for her to fly to Doha and get this surgery and this treatment. I actually thought it was a scam when I first saw it. I thought someone had hacked her and was I reported the page. I was like, hey, just so you know, this doesn't look right. Can you just check? It wasn't a scam. I was kind of hoping it was a scam, but it wasn't a scam. This doesn't sit right with me, especially that she's fundraised from her supporters. And I think it makes the club look bad, even though the club's done nothing wrong. I think that the club is not good enough. And I don't know whether I don't think that the club necessarily knew that it was coming, because I reported it right away to someone from the club to say, hey, this is happening, and they weren't aware, although they weren't part of that team. I don't know. I don't think it was the right thing to do, even though she might want the surgery, or the way it's been gone about. What are your thoughts?
I don't think the club has done anything wrong here. I don't think Samba thinks the club has done anything wrong here. If you read her post, she doesn't slag off the club at all. She's slagging off the Nepalese Football Association. In fact, she says the club, Wellington, have done the right thing. They were going to give her the surgery, and they've agreed that, If she wants to get it done somewhere else, they'll give her the money that they get from the insurance to have it. So people might take an implication if they like, but she's definitely not saying the club has done anything wrong at all. And I can also understand from her point of view, she's done her ACL before, and she was operated on by a particular surgeon over in Qatar, and she wants to go to the same surgeon. And I can understand that as well. They've been inside her knee. They know what it looks like. They've sewn up one of the tendons. It would make sense from a medical point of view to go to the same surgeon because he'll know that her knee better than anyone else. But an insurance company's not going to go, okay, you can have any surgeon you like in the world. They're not going to pay Phoenix that. They'll give her the money to have it done, probably in a very nice hospital here in New Zealand, which will be in perfectly good care. But I can also understand why because this is her career. If it doesn't affect, that's her earning potential completely done for the rest of her life. Basically, she can't play football again. So I can understand why she would want to go to overseas. The fundraiser, yeah, okay, that's a bit strange because that's not really something I think we're used to. I did read someone say, well, this is not uncommon from the culture she comes in to sort of do that. And it seems weird for us because even though we know better than that, we sort of assume that professional footballers are doing quite well financially, right? We assume they've got a bit of money behind them. That's actually not true, of course, especially in the women's game. And even someone who's as high profile as Samba probably isn't earning millions and millions of dollars. So to shell out $80,000 to go to Doha, clearly beyond, her ability. And yet she wants to do it. So she's asked her fans, who she spends a lot of time signing autographs and spends a lot of time being there for, that we've seen here. She's asked them if they can help, and they have. So yes, it's a little bit outside my comfort zone as well. But I don't think anyone's really done anything wrong here, except perhaps the Nepalese Football Association. But again, they may not have a lot of money either. So, yeah.
I think it's a bit shady. I don't really like that Samba's asking her fans, who are probably less financially fortunate than she is, to shell out $80,000 for surgery in Qatar instead of when she could get it free at a perfectly fine level here in New Zealand. And a lot quicker, she could have gotten it in 3 weeks, and I don't know how long it's been. It's been months, and is that difference in level of care that she can get in Qatar really worth all these months of not playing? You talk about she might, if it doesn't go well, she might not be able to play again. But if she's not playing for a while, she's gonna lose it, and then that could also be bad. She's rostered on for another season, or contracted on for another season with Wellington. I'd love to see her playing the whole season, so we can actually see what we know she can do, which we didn't. Unfortunately, we didn't really see this season. If she gets that ACL surgery quick, maybe she might be back the next season. But it's getting tight, and we need her back for next season. Just get the surgery quick, Samba, please.
Yeah, I think there's lots of mixed feelings about it, and there's things that, like I said, I do understand, and then I don't understand. I do feel kind of sorry for every other Wellington Phoenix player that's torn their ACL and just went through this, because I imagine it's a private healthcare, it's a private hospital, there's no insurance. Was it not good enough for the other two teammates that you had? Why, again, I know she's redone it, but so has Tessa Middag. There's kind of a why do you think you're special that I think New Zealanders as a culture don't always like that much as well. So I don't think that, I think that doesn't help. Maybe in other cultures that's a very acceptable thing to do, but I don't understand why. It was an interesting thing to think about and talk about, and I am concerned that she tore it 8 weeks ago. She could have had surgery 5 weeks ago by the sounds of it. So this delay, and like I said, she's only just raised the money for it last week, and now can she even fly to Doha? Because like I said, they're bombing places in the Middle East. It's is there going to be time? And if she's not ready in time for season, fans are going to look at her and say, well, where did that 5 weeks go that you could have had, Any further thoughts on anything, everything?
Western Sydney won, which means we're bottom of the table, and that sucks.
Yeah, and the goal difference. It's the goal difference.
I don't think over the season we've been the worst team in the league because we played some good football and scored some good goals, but yeah, we've also lost a lot as well. But yeah, I do not want to get a wooden spoon.
Me neither. I think Wanderers deserve it more than we do. Look, you know, maybe it's a kick in the pants I don't know when we last got the spoon. It has been, I feel like, quite a long time since we got the spoon. I don't know. Thankfully, it is a closed league, for better or for worse. I think overall, for better, it's a closed league, but we won't be relegated, at least if that happens. But those goal differences where we did get flogged, that's costing us right now. So thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week to talk about the Ferns and the men versus Adelaide. Thank you for joining us.